Hi there. Welcome to the Campfire, Chats at the Campfire. I'm here today with Carrie Taylor. Thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank
Carrie,
you for inviting me.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. You guys are in for a treat today. Carrie is, how I know Carrie, she is a yoga instructor. And over the past 5 years, I have practiced embracing yoga. Even though yoga has been in my world for some time, I really didn't quite know how to embrace it. I was just probably more out there than coming in here. And Carrie is a yoga instructor that I say has a beautiful essence to her. And she has a lovely way of speaking and explaining. And as I sat there in my unknowing in a yin class for quite a few weeks, months with Carrie, I said to myself, I don't know anything about Carrie Taylor, but the way that she speaks, the way that she walks, the way that she holds space for everyone in the class, I said to myself, that girl has walked through some fire. And I don't know how old Carrie is, but I do know that she is with us as a Campfire girl, somewhere over 40. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. That's very
somewhere over 40. And would you say that you've walked through the fire?
Absolutely. Yeah. Many fires.
Yeah.
A few fires along the
So
way.
before I go any further, how about you tell me about not only you're a yoga instructor, what do you do?
What do I do? Well, I would say that I could sum it up in a few words, saying that my passion is to help people find themselves. And I love guiding people along that path. And I have a couple of ways that I do that. One is through yoga. And I also am a consulting hypnotist, which I love doing that as well. And I also guide women along their journey to birth. And so I'm a hypnobirthing instructor. So all of those things kind of lead me to help people to find themselves.
You cover the umbrella of womanhood from maiden to mother to crone.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are able to, holding space is really an interesting piece that I don't think I talk about my life being from 0 to 50. It's my first half, and then my second half is 50 and up. And I think about that piece of holding space for other women. I just feel it's the biggest piece of generosity.
Absolutely, especially in this world right now. There's not a lot of space to be held because everybody's so busy.
Yeah, exactly. And being in this Sisters at the Campfire world of what we kind of say, we're between 40 and 60. And how do you, in your yoga practice, what do you offer? What do you like to bring to, as I say, bring to the table for women our age and women struggling in various ways, physically, mentally, soulfully?
Yeah, so women of our age, I would say, need to actually, a lot of them need to find time for themselves. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that a lot of women at that age tend to be so used to giving and putting out energy, and then they find that their cup is empty and they don't have anything for themselves. So I like to offer the space so that they can do some inner soul work and reflection and, getting rid of all of those shoulda, coulda, wouldas, all of the responsibility, all of the things that get put on us, not only by ourselves, but by society and all of that. So just taking time to decompress and to realize that there is a beautiful soul in there that is just wanting to come out, really. and to share, right,
Yeah.
with the magic. Because when we're not listening to our bodies, we're not listening to our inner self, we miss so many opportunities, right? And so it's really important to just take the time to, pause. And that's why I really enjoy teaching yin classes and restorative.
Yin. So maybe you could explain the difference between yin, restorative, and then a yoga with some movement, or I guess a flow class.
A flow class,
Yeah.
So with a yin class, it is about tapping into our emotions, really, because what we're doing in yin is we're letting go of the muscles, so letting the muscles soften so that the tendons and the ligaments can kind of be stretched. And that's where we tend to hold a lot of our emotions. And I've done some energy work and studied it with Donna Eden, and I just find it very fascinating how the body holds emotions in various parts of our body. So just using the opportunity through yin to be able to release that, or just even to acknowledge that, oh, I didn't realize this emotion is bubbling up while I'm in this pose that I'm holding. So with yin, you're holding poses for 3 to 5 minutes. It's not supposed to be extremely comfortable. There should be some discomfort in the poses so that you can feel.
Yes.
As opposed to restorative. Restorative is where there would be more props and you'd be able to release and let go. And, we're not getting into ligaments, tendons, and emotions. It's more of an opening. So that's the difference between restorative and yin. And then with a flow class, a hatha flow class, it's the movement. And with all of yoga, it's coming back to the breath. Yoga is the union of breath and movement in order to calm the mind. So that's why when somebody does a movement class or a yin class or restorative, they come out going, oh, I feel really good now.
Yeah.
Because it's like I took that moment to calm my mind and I didn't know it was so full.
Yes. I found that I have such a reckoning with my ego when I do yoga.
Yeah.
Yin, where you would think it would be relatively easy to sit in a pose, a very basic pose, but my goodness. And you must see us all get a little bit uncomfortable or something.
Yeah.
What do you see in everybody? And do we all tend to
fidgeting? There's some movement. It's like, okay, usually that's when I know it's like, okay, let's keep them in just a little longer, because
so good.
I always say, and I've, been, somebody told me this, that, yin starts when you want to get out. That's the moment.
That's what you say.
Yeah, that's when.
That's what you say.
As soon as you start feeling that bit of discomfort, like you're fidgeting and you need to get out, it's like, oh, stay in a little longer, because there's some magic to unearth there, some treasures. So yeah, it's also yin, I find, is really good because it trains you how to deal with people or situations that aren't comfortable, right? And to come back to breathing, come back to your breath, and to slow down.
It's so good. I would recommend it to anybody. When you were talking about understanding where the body keeps score, and how pain, let's say, can sit in certain joints and muscles and different things. Is there is there a particular body part that is very common for women in perimenopause, menopause, that tend to be what? How do you teach to us?
Yeah, so the hips, the thighs, the knees are generally the areas where we tend to hold things. So the hips is where we hold our self-image. And so if we aren't feeling good about ourselves, or we've been giving all our power away, the hips can tend to be a little cranky. Thighs is where we tend to hold frustration and anger, things that we haven't spoken about, that we've kept inside because we want to hold the peace. So, working through that. And then the knees is connected to our heart chakra, and the energy of the heart. So, heartaches, anger, frustration, loss also can settle in in the knees and lost. Yeah. And then, you know, the body works, the left side is the feminine side, the right side is the masculine side. So, you know, depending on who you're having those issues with in your life, things may show up more on the left side than on the right side, or vice versa. So
it's amazing.
It's we're like a little puzzle.
Interesting. It's
like
so interesting. I was recently speaking to how, even though menopause is can be a very challenging time, particularly physically, you know, like it's a very outward, not only does our body start changing and almost betraying us a bit, our hair, our skin, our, you know, so much about us outward is happening. And then of course our body is becoming more inflamed as we go through these shifts in hormones. And as I say all of that, I find it also a very interesting thought that because of all of that, it is pushing us to an uncomfortable place, to a piece of frustration perhaps, that then is allowing this, what I call a fire coming up through us, to say enough. No more.
Yeah.
No more. And speak. And reclaim your space.
It's like a detox. We're going through a purge or a detox.
It is.
And when you can look at it that way, it can be a lot smoother.
Yes.
Than when we're looking at it like, oh my gosh, this is menopause and this is all going to happen to me. Owning it and walking through that fire, right? Walking through it with dignity and grace, and it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom.
And if there is, this is the other piece. We can be so, I certainly was taught well to be hard on myself. I think it was our generation of such, you know, get up, go and do, put on your big girl pants and giddy up and go, right? And to forgive ourselves and self-compassion. Now, I would think, when I think of something like as big as self-compassion, I put a correlation to yoga. There's something, maybe it's the humbling piece, maybe it's just being a tree pose and falling over. Is it our ego? What is it? What would you say?
Well, it is a process for all of us to release that part of our, you know, our inner critic, right? Because we're so hard on ourselves, and like I said, a lot of women have issues in the hips because we're constantly thinking we're not good enough, we need to do this, we need to, and really yoga is it's a work in, right? I've said that, it's not a work out. So it is an opportunity to go in and go, how is this feeling for me in this time? And not pay attention to what's happening to the other people in the class, because it doesn't really matter.
Yes. It's a very it's a piece of the journey. It really is a piece of the journey. So you can see why Carrie is just such a wonder. I don't want to say perfect, because we just live in a perfectly imperfect world. But speaking of that, when you listen to Carrie, you might think, holy cow, she is just all zen and has it all together. And we all know that we're all human and that we are all more alike than not.
Absolutely.
We're all more alike than not, yeah. And when we talk about the heroine's journey and we talk about our lives as humans, as women, and going through the heroine's journey of the masculine path that was told to us, and we all answered it and did everything as we were told to do, and then divots get hit and boulders come and roll us right over us. Does that relate to you? Like, does
no,
that...
Absolutely.
Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the divots and being rolled over. Absolutely, yes. I think it's interesting because we've all kind of gone through many variations of that, and I have yet to meet somebody that hasn't. But it's like the polishing of the coal to make the diamond, right? It's like it just makes us shine brighter at the other end, which, it's definitely a journey.
It really, really is. And I love how you said that. I found great inspiration looking at women ahead of me. And some women, I am so excited and pleased when I read their readings, or I meet a woman who has this light to her. She might not have any makeup on, and she may be full gray, and there's just a brightness to her, and kind of similar to my explanation of you. Yeah, not that you're, but just that light, that energy that just exudes. And yet in that same breath, I feel like there are lots of women who are ahead of us who did not embrace menopause in this period of life. And when I say step into their second spring, they've stayed in the winter. And as easy as you make it sound, the to walk through that fire is really where that resilience happens, and it takes courage. It's not easy work.
No,
it's not easy work, and yet we're all more alike than not. What would you say to that? Like, if you have another woman looking at you saying, "Oh my gosh, how do you do this?" Or when you give a tiny piece of your story, which I'm sure your story is very thick and full, and
well, if you goes way back to being a 5-year-old in kindergarten, not getting into the glee club when I tried out, because back in the day you had to try out, and not everybody got in. So getting my voice cut off at such a young age, and very conscious of speaking and sharing what was inside. So I did a lot of years of just listening and pondering and questioning and being curious. And so I guess I've been in training for a long time, but the universe had a different plan for me, and it was to get over myself and to start speaking out. And there were lots of divots and bumps along the way that pushed me to be doing yoga and to teach yoga and to be a hypnotist and all of those things that I would never have thought in a million years. No, not at all.
What led you to this path, and where does courage come from in you?
Well, a really beautiful soul once said that your biggest mentor is your tormentor. And I love that. And, I had my tormentor in my life that was doing a really good job. And it kept pushing me and pushing me and pushing me. And while I was being pushed, I didn't realize that I was actually being pushed through the fire. Right? Because you're in it and you're like, this is feeling very uncomfortable and I don't like it and I want out. And there's the dark night of the soul happens where you can't handle it anymore and you're going to just let the fire burn you. But there's some little bit inside that just kind of goes, no, you're not going to do that. And I believe, the guides, the universe, whatever it is, comes at the point when you need it to kind of switch your direction and take you on a different path. And that happened to me.
Do you remember?
Absolutely.
Do you remember that moment?
There was a series of moments. It was building. It was many, many years. But the actual moment that things shifted, and in a way I took my power back, was pivotal. And it was actually fascinating that I'm actually putting these pieces together as we're speaking. But I was out for a walk with my dog, and I smelt, they were doing some construction, and I smelt the dirt. And it took me back to probably that 5-year-old. And it just opened up this wonder and curiosity and beauty. And everything changed. Everything changed in that moment. I remember on that walk, I gathered some daisies and I made myself a daisy ring. And that was the commitment that I made to myself that day, that I was going to put myself first and that I was going to start doing things for me. And it was, yeah, I'm getting chills as I'm speaking about it, but it was a beautiful, beautiful time, even though, you know, minutes before all that happened, it was the most devastating time, and I didn't even think I was going to be here today, right? Because it was not good. But
Brutal.
It was brutal, exactly.
Brutal.
It was brutal.
Such a good one.
Yeah, I love that one. Yeah, so yeah, that was the pivotal moment that things changed, and then, you know, things just happened. They just started to unfold, and you know, I was in a yoga class participating, and I'm like in a downward dog, going, I'm going to teach. Yes, I'm teaching. And then I found my teacher to teach me, and I took teacher training, and yeah, things just kind of started to evolve, and I was putting my life back together again for me. And also at that point, I think, yeah, it really became clear that I had been giving my power away. You know, I was in the victim, and I was, you know, everything's happening to me. Why is this happening to, you know, poor me, woe is me. That story was playing out a lot in, you know, previous situations. And it was like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. And yeah. So, you know, there's days when I do have those moments, but, you know, when you can take your power back and you can own what you're doing and what's happening to you, it's like the best, and things magically happen. So,
yeah. And those fears are amazing when you can, step into them.
Absolutely.
They're big, but they're doable.
Absolutely.
Would you say that? Or
oh yeah, yeah. And you know, we never get anything that's bigger than we can handle. So the trusting and letting go, and just knowing that we are guided and we are supported, and everything will work out, even though it might not feel like it at the time.
No, I don't think it's supposed to, though, is it? No. Because that would be too easy.
Well,
some
people have easy, and that's okay.
Yeah,
too. But I think,
but in that uncomfortable,
absolutely.
Like in that when we're like, where do I go?
Yeah, and you know, going through the menopausal and the shedding and all of that, right? The detoxing, getting rid of who that label was that we were all stamped with when we, you know, became a woman. What is that?
Yeah, it's very. I loved how you talked about, you know, reclaiming yourself and her, and even going back to that 5-year-old. I reference her, and I find that there's a piece when I can focus on her, and such as with the daisies, you made a commitment. And when you decide you are going to shift and change and do the uncomfortable and need to dig into some courage, it's not betraying her once that commitment is made. It seems to be just almost like another party, another individual at the party, although her is you. It's an interesting piece that it's just a little bit removed, that you can think about that little 5-year-old, or mine was a little 12-year-old, and it's like she needs my hug. She needs me to take her for the moment, grab her hand, or whatever it might be, speak whatever, give her space to speak.
Absolutely. And you know, all those aspects of ourselves, the child, the teen, the young woman, the you know, middle age, they're all parts of us, and they all need to be coming together, right? We can't leave any behind.
Bring them home. Bring them home. You know, speaking of that, and you were mentioning earlier that you had traveled with your daughter. So I was thinking, because again, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we have the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And I talk about us stepping into crondom. And there's a really amazing woman, a psychotherapist, who wrote a book called Crones Don't Whine. And it is, again, stepping into showing up for her and paying attention and speaking your truth, and then letting the chips fall. But as we step into, or we're really babies of Crondom.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the middle with a mother
Mm-hmm.
and a daughter
Mm-hmm.
and yourself. What does that feel like? Like, I
Mm.
think, a lot of us, this life we're living, have many parallels.
Yeah.
You know, you and I
Yeah.
both don't know each
Yeah.
other's stories, but I feel like your story resonates with my story,
Mm-hmm.
as with, I'm guessing,
yeah.
yeah, and that we have these young adults,
Right. Yeah.
and we have maybe, you
Mhm.
know, but we have people older than us that are.
Mm-hmm.
How does that feel?
Well, what I've learned along the way is that allowing them to make mistakes and giving up that need to manage and monitor, because that's, you know, we tend to do that as mothers, right? Managing and monitoring, but getting to the point where you can just release and let go and trust again that they're going to make their own decisions, and they might be good or they might not be, and it's okay because we all have our own path. So I think that would be where I'm at this point, is that I'm able to just be the observer. And a wise woman told me once that we aren't to help unless we're asked to. And that's really hard as a mother as well, to not, you know, interfere and be there helping out all the time, because we can change someone's life path by getting too much involved, and then it might be more difficult for them later on. So allowing them to fall when they're stumbling is really been quite helpful, and it's freeing.
Isn't it?
It frees up lots of time.
That detaching. Did you have to learn that? Did you know, because we naturally, we morph, and you know, we're controlling, because there is a degree when these babes are babies, we have to take control. Absolutely. In that process of letting them go, and the codependency that occurs, and then the detaching. Did you have a moment that you said, holy cow?
Well, I think it was probably walking through the fire, being all consumed by the heat of that. So yeah, it was a natural thing that happened. So I wasn't conscious of it until, you know, reflecting on it. It's like, okay, I guess that was a good thing for all of us, even though at the time maybe it wasn't, because I didn't feel like I was doing enough or wasn't there for them, right? Not you know, doing the mother role. But they're fine. They've all
right?
They're fine.
They're so fine, and if they're